Welcome back to another edition of the AGI Podcast Weekly Blitz. Full transparency, we usually release these on Mondays. This will be Monday, May 12th, but we're recording this on Friday, May 9th, right? Yeah, May 9th, because Mother's Day weekend is coming up, and I can only spend so much time away from my family recording podcasts and doing crazy things. So if anything changes in the next 48 hours, which often happens in AI, and we don't have it in here, so be it. But I do have a great guest today for you, to Ashton Schultz. And I have to tell you, Ashton, I'm like so resisting the Hogan's Heroes reference, but that would just totally show my age. Like,
I well, it's funny. I've gotten that my entire life, the Hogan's Heroes reference, and I think the first time I probably heard it might have been in chemistry class in high school, and the chemistry teacher probably called on me, and I didn't know the answer, and so he said, "I know nothing," and I was like, "Bro, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm too young for that." But as I've heard it more and more in my life, I've had to go back and look up YouTube episodes of Hogan's Heroes. And it's funny you mentioned that. I was just teaching my son about Hogan's Heroes because somebody made a Sergeant Schultz reference to him the other day, and he had no idea. And I mean, he's only 8, so I had to teach him, like, yep, throughout your life, your last name is Schultz, and people will probably make references to Sergeant Schultz, and it'll be something about I know nothing.
that is
So
awesome. The legacy lives on.
the legacy, yeah, I passed the torch down to him. So now maybe when his chemistry teacher drops a Hogan's Heroes reference, at least he'll know what he's talking about.
That's great, man. So, Ashton and I have become friends through the Indiana AI Innovation Network that TechPoint put together. We were just at the Mira Awards together, and Ashton is just one of these guys that has a curious mind and is overly friendly. I actually love how friendly a lot of people are in this space. And I don't come from a tech background, so I was kind of under this impression when I first showed up to those events that like all data and AI and tech people were kind of like had no EQ and no personality. I've not found that to be 100% true, and you definitely have a lot of personality. So tell everybody kind of like what your background is, what you're into, what you're looking for now.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, and I agree. It's definitely a diverse group of folks in the AI Innovation Network. You've got some of the just pure data guys. And myself, I don't necessarily come from a very technical background. I've been in sales my entire career in the tech distribution channel. So I recently left a 18-year career with a global tech distributor, and I was in account management and relationship management in that regard my entire career. So I think it takes a little bit of a personality to be in sales and just kind of roll with the conversations. And of course, I had technical resources backing me up whenever needed. But yeah, so I think we've got a great diverse group of folks in that space, and it's great because it brings a lot of various perspectives to the conversation. I can't necessarily get all the nitty gritty details of talking about, compute power and all of that, but from a business processes standpoint, I mean, I surely can get into the conversation about the, you know, what AI does for me in my professional career, what I feel like the future may have in store in a enterprise sales type environment, and just really in just how we go to market and do business altogether. Um, in my own career, I'm also an ADHD professional, so I'd be naive to not be aware of some of my blind spots, the administrative friction of certain things in job, whether it's lately with all the tariffs, we're doing a lot of price increases. I think I mentioned this to you the other day about how I've found ways to just stay on top of pricing increases with my customers. And let's say we've got a laptop manufacturer, they're expected a 10% increase coming up at the end of May. Well, I get an email from leadership about that. Then, instead of me racking my brain over, okay, which of my 30 something customers buys this particular brand, um, I've just been able to leverage tools. Um, you know, I know you and I have talked about Copilot. It's in an enterprise environment where you're running just Microsoft tools. It's the best you got sometimes. When governance gets in the way and says, "Sorry, you can't use Claude, you can't use ChatGPT, you can't use Gemini." We're locked down with just the tools that we have available to us. You have to get creative with what you've got, and so I feel like I I'm kind of an optimist around the potential of Copilot, um, but using reference and having it grounded in your own company's data and your own work data, it's it's a somewhat powerful tool. It's
Let me
do
weigh in on that
sometimes I
for a second because I think you're bringing up a really pragmatic point. And when I was on the AI Applied committee for Ivy Tech, there was a group of industry people, like 50 industry people, trying to talk about how curriculum should look at Ivy Tech going forward across everything, not just tech jobs. And the question came up a couple times: should we teach them individual models? And my answer to that was very similar to yours. No was my real answer. Like, you should teach them how to navigate large language models and multimodal models and all these video and like, you should just teach them how to interact with AI is the best skill that they can have, and how to ask the right questions of the AI. But if you were going to pick a model, I would hands down say the most pragmatic one would be Copilot, because most big businesses or decent sized businesses use the Microsoft environment, and that's what they're going to trust, and that's where they're going to ground themselves. So I think you have a great point in the fact that Copilot may be slow to progress, but if you really just if you don't have the bandwidth to be playing around with all these tools all the time, like, learn Copilot. Or if you're in the Google space, the same goes for Gemini, right? And they both neither one of them are my LLMs of choice. But if I was stuck in those, like, there's a lot you can do with both of them.
yeah, and with all that said, I think it's probably the one that I would trust the most.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna hand over all of my email information from the last 18 years of my career um, over to a large language model and trust it, I think it's going to be Copilot. I don't necessarily agree with the branding aspect of Copilot. I feel like the Copilot Chat has diluted what the true M365 Copilot can do.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe there's some confusion in the marketplace around people who use Copilot Chat. And they say, oh, this is, it's not that great. And just kind of move along, assuming that's the maximum power of all of Copilot.
But that's true
But
the free ones, right? Like, people go into the free chat version of Chat GPT and are like, this thing kind of sucks. But you go get $150 a month Chat GPT license, and I guarantee you that you'll find some crazy stuff that it can do. And Anthropic's not all that different. I the security side of things is really, I think, where a lot of people are leaning. And you mentioned right before we got onto the show a big security breach. I want you to get into that, but the one thing that I want to throw at you is, on the same thought that I have always thought is, look, if this stuff goes sideways at some point in time, unforeseen, and there's like large data breaches, right? If this just the technology as a whole, both Google and Microsoft make billions of dollars a year. They have so if your company is using one of those and there's a huge data breach, like, your lawsuits are going to come into your company, or you're going to pass on to Microsoft or Google, right? You're going to expect them to pay. You can't do that with a company that's in the red. And both Anthropic and OpenAI are in the red. They'll both just declare bankruptcy, and you'll be stuck with that bill. That's one of the risk mitigations that I think about when it comes to leveraging Google or Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. I still hesitate with everything. And it's headlines like the one that I woke up to this morning, that it really kind of makes you pause. And I don't know that this was necessarily AI related, but it's still, you know, I'm not technically, like I mentioned before, I'm not that technical of a guy. So I don't know all of the vulnerabilities. So I think the safest thing to do, is just proceed with caution, on a lot of the stuff that you're doing on these large language models, or just in the interwebs in general.
What was
I've
the
got
Canvas breach?
what's that?
What was the Canvas breach that you had mentioned?
So Canvas is the platform that a lot I think a majority of higher education institutions use for their LMS, their learning management systems. So um, all of their transcripts get uploaded there. Course study materials. Students use this platform to upload their papers, and so there was a huge breach. I pulled up some of the statistics earlier around it. Give me one sec. So 275 million records were stolen. It affects almost 9,000 institutions, including IU, Notre Dame, Ivy Tech, and um, globally, many other institutions. Now, one thing that I did discover, Purdue is not part of this. They use a different platform, and so I'm sure the decision maker at Purdue that said, you know what, we're not going with Canvas. I'm sure they're smugly sipping their coffee this morning, saying, "I told you so."
I'm telling you, man, I know Purdue's a land grant university, so they will never change their name, but Purdue has become kind of the MIT of the Midwest, in my opinion. They are very, very tech forward school. And so the fact that they didn't fall prey to a data breach that others did, doesn't surprise me. But there's a big AI symposium I'm going to. It will be, when this airs, it will be tomorrow. So Tuesday, here in Indianapolis, AI and Education Symposium. So I'm sure this will be top of mind there. I know that it's sad because education is already very risk adverse, and they're already like really trepidly moving into the AI space. And I understand, but I'm not sure sometimes that there's time for that. I bring up Carmel schools. I know that their teachers, I've watched their board meetings, their teachers have been going to training and been offered training on Gemini in a classroom for over 2 years. And yet, my 15-year-old, I ask her once a week, "Hey, you using AI in school yet? Are they teaching anything about it?" Nope. And I'm like, that kind of pisses me off. But I won't get on that soapbox today. But we do have to prepare kids, but we do have to be safe. And so I feel for the education system for the conundrum that they're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, the timing of this couldn't be worse. It's finals week. And obviously that was planned. These these hackers are probably like, they want to find the time where you're going to feel the pain the worst.
Yeah.
And so I think finals week that's it. I mean, people are trying to get their last project submitted, and or they're trying to cram for their last Friday final, and they can't access course material. Um, and it's crazy the amount of information that was stolen. You know, 3.65 terabytes of data. Sure, that if you're talking like videos, that's not a whole lot in terms of video, but when you look at the amount of printed, um,
You're
that's like
right.
billions of pages of printed data. It's things like messages, compromised messages and student IDs. Um, some of the compromised data includes emails, private messages between students and teachers. So if you think about all the FERPA
Yeah.
violations that are going to come of this, it's huge.
Was there any news on what the hackers were looking for? Or were they just looking to be disruptive, or were they looking for
Ransomware, that type of thing. If they're gonna, hold these universities or this platform, I guess the platform is the one that's doing the negotiations with the bad actors. Um, they're just scrambling to get stuff done. People are waiting for final transcripts, and there's a lot of people right now that are really relying on these platforms heavily. If you think of all the time in the semester where this system is probably being pushed to the max, and there's a ton of stuff flowing through it. You've got stuff like students sending messages to professors about medical reasons why they can't um, you know, show up for their final, or there's all kinds of information that's housed in this platform.
Yeah,
So
that's huge.
yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. So
Bad news for the education system. We did have some really good news for those of us who are Anthropic pilled, though, because Anthropic has just made a deal with Elon and SpaceX and xAI to now get all the compute from Colossus. So there's two Colossus data centers down in Tennessee. There's Colossus 1 and Colossus 2. And Elon has moved Grok over to Colossus 2 and is now allowing Anthropic to leverage Colossus 1 in a huge deal, which everybody will tell you who's been using Claude, like the compute constraints have been really kind of annoying and concerning. And with OpenAI starting to catch up, I did hear that in the last year, Anthropic has increased their revenue 80 times over. They've 80x their revenue. So they're growing fast, but they were running out of room. And so this is really good news. It's also like, don't ever count Elon out. I heard one of the podcasters you and I listened to, you may have already heard him say it, but he was right. Like, it looks like Elon is like, okay, fine. If I'm not going to be Sam Altman or Mark Zuckerberg, then I'll just be Jensen Huang. And so he's moving more into the, like, I'm going to be the supplier of the tools and the shovels that you need in order to make this thing happen. And that's a pretty smart move on my.
yeah, I mean, is this Elon saying, I still want to, I still need to be involved. I still need to be, a puppet master,
Uh-huh.
um, and um, and still have his hands, realizing that Grok is being far surpassed by other models.
I think it is. I think it's him saying, okay. I don't think he has a problem pivoting. I think a lot of people who are really successful entrepreneurs will dive right into something and then be like, okay, that's not working so well. I'll just pivot and do something else. And a lot of us who haven't been entrepreneurs our whole life, like that oftentimes feels like defeat. Whereas to an entrepreneur, it's just like, no, you just got to kind of move fast and break things, and eventually something will stick.
Yeah, that 80x number you mentioned, that's crazy. Because I mean, if I think you and I are, listening to some of the same sources on this, but I think they said they planned for 10x, so 8 times what they had planned for, in terms of maximum growth. So yeah, they're struggling to keep up, and me as a user of the free versions of all these, I don't have paid licenses for Anthropic, but yeah, I get I get hit with the limits all the time. And it's like, all right, time to time to do something else, or I'll switch models. So if these limits can increase, I'm curious to see how this plays out, as far as what the limits are for, if anything will change as far as free usage, or I can't speak for what the limits are like with the paid I would hope that if I did upgrade to paid, I would, not run into those same barriers quite as quickly. But I'm assuming people who are doing, you know, heavy usage are still also running into those same limits.
I think a lot of it is the automated stuff. So
Yeah.
I built my website recently. I showed you using Claude, and like I would have the browser extension open, doing a bunch of stuff in HubSpot and Cloudflare and building things out. Like that would hit a rate limit, but I would also have like just the chat open in another window, same account, and it wouldn't rate limit out. But the browser use rate limited out a bunch. So hopefully they'll extend some of that like ongoing in the background use for Claude Code work or browser use. I'll be honest, I haven't dove into Claude Code yet. I mean, using the browser, I had to do that email to do that that website. I did have Claude write a whole bunch of code and commit it to GitHub. It told me how to do that, and I had ChatGPT do the same thing. But I didn't open Codex or open Claude Code to do that. I just did it within the native conversation. So I still haven't. Have you gotten into like an IDE window and started using? Yeah,
Yeah. I I used it. I loved using it for um filling out forms, helping me figure out like, okay, what am I doing here? Where am I navigating? Multiple processes. I used it for some resume updates and some, help me navigating certain processes. So yeah, I use the Gemini browser based one. I haven't tried the Claude browser based one. I have not tried any of the other ones, but I do like the prospect of, show it your screen and
yeah,
help walk you through, um, which, the fact that it's almost like a live, kind of like the conversational type, I guess that would make me think that's why it's um, more consuming of tokens,
sure.
and hitting your limit sooner, because it's just kind of live action. It's watching what you're doing rather than, you know, uh, just one prompt, then a response, another prompt, and so on and so forth.
It is phenomenal. Browser use and screen share are phenomenal. Now, I will say there are certain I have found certain platforms that have a lot of blocks on that. So one of the things I was trying to do with Citizen AI is to go through my so we have a vertical AI product that helps nonprofits and behavioral health companies, their clients who are in the Alice population or who are struggling with being on the poverty line, navigate wraparound services and benefits. And so historically, when I've tried to reach out to companies, a lot of that time that's been on LinkedIn. But in the nonprofit and like recovery and mental health space, a lot of them are on Facebook. So I thought, man, I have like thousands of Facebook. I hate Facebook, but I have thousands of connections on Facebook, and a lot of them work in the space. So like maybe I could just have Claude browser use, dig through it, and figure out which ones are right, and then send them a message. If you're in Facebook, every single decision it makes, you have to okay. Like Facebook has guards on that. So it,
Interesting.
yeah, it kind of sucked. It was like, I mean, I could have just do this myself. If I'm hitting okay every 30 seconds before you make.
I feel you on Facebook. I gave up Facebook for Lent last year, and it was such a freeing feeling. Um, although I ended up changing my Facebook doom scrolling to LinkedIn doom scrolling, which in my mind it's a little bit easier to justify. At least it's somewhat more productive. Um, so I'm curious how the browser based models handle, LinkedIn, and are there the same limits that you run into with Facebook? Have you tried that at all?
I haven't tried it much. I've listened to people talk. I know you cannot like set one free and they're moving around and doing stuff because LinkedIn like will block your. I haven't even tried it because I've heard if they detect agents in there, they'll block your account. So it's like
Interesting.
kind of a maybe I'll set up a dummy account on a different computer sometime if I can get away with that and play around with it. But I cannot afford. if you block my Facebook account, I'd be like, oh, this is like being forced to give it up for Lent. No harm, no foul, no loss, right? But if you block me from LinkedIn, that's problematic for me and my
Yeah,
business.
yeah, that's your moneymaker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, your network, you can't be removed. Yeah, I gotta say, I might feel a little bit like I'm feeling around in the dark. I've relied heavily on LinkedIn and growing my network over the last over my career. I don't know when was LinkedIn started. I feel like I could probably scroll through because I know they sort your contacts by chronologically. So I could probably scroll down to the bottom of my contacts list and figure out roughly when it was started. But I know, yeah, I feel like Facebook, that's my repository for my photo albums through my entire adult life. Um,
You and I have too much in common. That's my dad had all these pictures up. My mother, God rest her soul, died about 5 years ago. My dad, I went over to his house the other day and he had all these pictures out on this big long table. And he's like, hey, do you want these? And I was like, Dad, you know I'm not a pack rat, but yes, I do. And I just walked by and took a picture of each of these picture frames full of pictures, and then I uploaded them to Facebook, and so now they'll live on forever there. And that to me, that's a great use for Facebook. But like, I really don't care what your dog did yesterday, or like a lot of the stuff that gets shared on there just has never been relevant to me.
it's gotten to be such a money grab, it seems like, even on the videos, it's like they'll interrupt a video halfway through and make you watch two ads. So it's everything's sponsored now and everything is just pushed for commercial. Yeah, the only thing I can really do on there is my wife gets on and she tags she's our family social media manager, so I let her handle it. That way I don't get soaked in and sucked in. And um it's I love seeing the memories. It's great for the memories.
I would
But
agree. I would It's fun
yeah,
when they pulls that up every once in a while. That I will agree, that's the one thing that catches my eye. It'll be like, 4 years ago on this day, you were doing this, and I'm like, "Yeah, wow, that seems like a lifetime ago," but you're right, I was.
then again, my iPhone does the same thing. So it's like I don't necessarily need Facebook for that anymore. Ever since and my iPhone does a great job of putting together, video montages and just slideshows. I mean, my kids are younger, so they still, Saturday mornings they still wake up and crawl in bed with mom and dad, and they always want our phone. They want to see slideshows on their phone, which I feel like as far as that's about the extent of Apple's AI and what they've figured out how to do well as far as AI, because Siri's not that great.
They're supposed to be getting Gemini all through all that and just leaning into the hardware, and now that Tim Cook is retired, I I understand the idea. I thought they were gonna be like a Blockbuster. I thought they were gonna be gone. I've been saying that for the last few years. I think I was wrong. I do think that I mean, if you look at the Mac Mini and now the Mac Neo, and like if they lean into the hardware and have the right hardware for the interface, then that and didn't spend all this money training models, that may be brilliant. But they are going to have to leverage somebody's good technology to fix Siri, because and voice to text. Why I have Wispr Flow, right? Which is like I pay $15 a month. I can push a button on my computer and talk to my computer. It completely formats it. Not only does it get all the words right, but if I like repeat myself or stutter, it fixes that. And yet I try to use voice to text when I'm driving on my iPhone just to answer to a message, and it like completely says something I didn't mean. And I'm like, seriously, Apple, you cannot get this technology right? Other people have. What's your
Yeah,
excuse?
I I don't have much experience with other phones outside of iPhone, but yeah, it definitely leaves something to be desired as far as the voice response. There's much better tools that I've used that respond better to text or to voice to text. one tool that I love is are these Plaud note takers.
Yeah.
And this has been kind of I have two of them. I lost this between the seat of my wife's car for 3 weeks, and I felt lost without it. As far as my cognitive load, when I'm engaged in a conversation, I realized, as soon as I started using transcription technology, and I started using these intelligent meeting recaps, it was a game changer for me. The first time in my career as a ADHD sales professional, I could get a meeting recap sent off 5 minutes after a meeting instead of 5 days later, and not stressing over what was that one action item that I said I was going to do, and oh shoot, I forgot what it is now, and I'm too embarrassed to reach out to the other people on the meeting. Um, these are game changers, and I have the unlimited subscription for this. Where it gives you unlimited amounts of minutes for transcription, and the fact that I can go back and look at any conversation that I where if as long as I was recording, as long as I hit the button, um uh, I can go back and say, hey, what did Jason and I talk about at lunch a couple of weeks ago, and it'll refresh my memory that way. I can quickly just it it makes me look good. It definitely it helps, and it creates awesome mind maps, or I can export a conversation to
Notebook
uh
LM.
yeah, Notebook LM, export the conversation. I can create an infographic based on a conversation. It's great.
Couldn't
And
agree more.
I use it, CRM logs. That's one thing about a sales job. It's Oh, I don't think I mean, I don't think there's any sales rep out there that'll tell you they just love going in and logging stuff in Salesforce or Dynamics 365. But the fact that I've been able to figure out how to leverage this technology and create custom prompts mapped to the required fields and the things that I need to extract out of a conversation, it's taken a huge mental load off of me after these meetings, and not spending as much time as I did in the conversation thinking about, like, okay, what do I need to put in here, and just overthinking stuff to death, and just getting the facts in there, extracting it out. And it's also a neutral party. It's amazing how, like, you know as a sales rep, you can get emotionally invested in an opportunity, and you know your customer's telling you one thing, and you're busy kind of thinking of the response, and you might miss something that they hear. But this is it picks up things that maybe you missed because you were thinking about how do you respond to this customer's objection to whatever you're pitching. And so it's kind of like a neutral, um maybe you heard the conversation more positively than it actually was, and maybe you were optimistic on buying signals, and it's kind of a reality check, like, hey, this guy, we sensed some hesitation on the customer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree
Maybe.
more. I couldn't agree more. I gotta we gotta keep things a little bit briefer because we're only supposed to be on for 30 minutes. But I do want to give a
Oh,
little feedback because I think you're bringing up great points. Which one of them is I used to do that also when I was at a company and with everyone's permission with meetings between management, and then upload it to Notebook LM and have it give feedback, and it would give that neutral feedback, and people received it much better than they would have if, just say, the CEO was given feedback with his emotion behind it. It's just a report of. So I think that's a game changer. The one thing that I will say to what you're saying, and you and I both do this, we record a lot of things, but in Indiana is a single party consent state, so we can do that all we want. But a lot of people don't like this idea, and this is where Apple, I think, may have again the trust of the community, where when everything does start getting recorded, at least if it's getting recorded on an Apple device, people are going to be more trusting that it's going to stay safe there than if you have a little Be Pioneer startup pin that you're wearing and nobody knows where the hell any of that's going to go.
Right. That's a great point. And I was hesitant, at first, using this technology, and I think, I thought, okay, am I going to get true, candid conversation out of my clients? And when I just say, hey, do you mind if I record this conversation? It's going to help me be better engaged, and we're both going to benefit from the notes. I'll have the notes to send out after, and Plaud's subscription, it's got all the compliance. It's HIPAA compliant. It's I believe FERPA compliant. So I think the European, I forget what some of the other SOCC. There's other compliance where
EU AI Act. The
yeah,
yeah, the
stuff like
European
that.
Union AI Act is probably the most stringent one. You know what,
Yeah.
man? I can This has been an amazing conversation. So I hope you'll come back on because this show, we try to do 2 things. We try to kinda update people on what's going on in AI, and all that's moving at lightning fast, but more than that, what we try to do is say, like, "Hey, if you're just a normal lay person out there, like, here's some ways that you can leverage AI," and some of the things I heard you say today are, 1, don't be afraid of it, explore it, right? 2, you don't have to open an IDE and work in the code base. You can open like a screen share or browser use and use natural language to have it help you on your computer as a next step. 3, meeting notes and transcripts are amazing, and the number one thing, and I have found this since AI came out, whether it was using it to help me as a writing tool or using it to record meetings, is just be honest and transparent with people, and you will get much less resistance than you think. But if you turn around and you're doing this stuff behind their back, then they're probably gonna be upset about it. So, just be honest and if 1 out of 90 meetings, somebody's like, "Hell no, you're not recording me," okay, I won't record you.
Yeah, just give me a little wink, a little nudge. If you want to say something off the record, I'll gladly turn it off. And usually it's received pretty well.
The one thing I wanna get that I do wanna get your opinion on though is because I did this a lot at Phoenix, right? And I was very transparent about it. That's a healthcare company. We didn't export any of the data or anything. We just used it to kinda optimize our meetings and whatnot. But the one thing I realized was the first time in a company somebody starts leveraging some of what they recorded, to, like, hold against people, this is all gonna crumble. If you weaponize those recordings, if you go back and like, "No, no, I have it on record. Back in June of 2026, you said Shaniqua is fat and doesn't isn't very helpful." Like once people start going back and picking through these transcripts to try to weaponize them, that's going to become problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all about intent.
It is.
And when you approach it with the right intent, the intent to just benefit both parties involved, I think that's when it's best received.
Yeah, so don't ruin it for everybody else, you people out there. Like, just use these things for what they're meant to be. Ashton, thank you so much for joining me today, man. You got any final parting words for the people out there? I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes if people want to get a hold of you. Is there anywhere else they should look for you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Also, my company that I'm starting to help ADHD professionals using AI tools in the workplace and to remove some of the administrative friction. It's called Spicy Brain Speaks. You can find that on LinkedIn or spicybrainspeaks.com. And I think parting message would be, don't overthink it. AI doesn't need to be super complicated. I think people are definitely overthinking these use cases. Just think about, what do you hate doing the most, and how can you use AI to make that thing a little bit easier?
That is an awesome message, man. Thank you. Will you join me again sometime?
Of course, anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jason.